to everyone who is here. And I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Elisabeth Williams, the Grassroots Campaigns Associate in the Advocacy and Awareness Department. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how working with the media is just a great activity for Generation Hope to get involved in. And thank goodness I'm not the only one who thinks so. You're also going to hear from Generation Hope member Kimberlee Ford, who's going to talk about her media work, her experience, and give you a few tips on how to sort of break down the process and get started in raising awareness for pulmonary hypertension. I also just want to add really quickly in the beginning, there are a lot of resources I'm going to talk about in this webinar that I have in the office and online to help you get going. I can point those out to you if you want to give me a call or an email after the webinar if you don't get a chance to ask all of your questions or share your stories. Definitely get in touch with me, and I will have my contact information available towards the end of the presentation. So, really quickly, here's spoiler alert. This is what we're going to talk about in the webinar. Really quickly, why it's important to raise awareness and using that in the media. Why media and Generation Hope working with media is sort of a good fit, and why we're going to talk about a little more about why it would work so well together. I'm going to talk about some tools to get you started, and then Kim is going to share her stories, her experience, and then we'll have a period at the end where you can ask any questions that you may want to ask. So one of the ways I like to start when people say, why should I raise awareness, is I sort of reply back, why wouldn't you raise awareness? And just to sort of entertain some ideas and some reasons why people think maybe they don't want to raise awareness really quickly. Some people might not see the value. Some people are just nervous and they're just not sure where to start. And some people I've heard say, it might take a lot of time and I'm not sure that I can commit that kind of time to it. So to just sort of address all of those issues. That first bullet point, raising awareness is a really proactive way to battle PH, and I know there are a lot of people, patients that I've worked with, caregivers, a lot of people in the PH community who feel that working with the media is something that they can do many ways and many times from the comfort of their own home. You can make phone calls to call reporters, you can follow up with them, send emails, mail them press kits and all of that information, oftentimes just sort of from the comfort of your own home. And I know a lot of people feel like they get something personally. They feel like they're fighting PH. Also, so sharing your story and raising awareness in the media brings greater awareness of pulmonary hypertension in your community. And I would just point out and maybe talk a little bit about this quote that is on the bottom of your screen. So earlier this year, Dr. Matai and a caregiver to a PH patient appeared on an NPR radio show focused on pulmonary hypertension. It was about 30 minutes, and they talked about the specific symptoms of pulmonary hypertension and just talked sort of in depth about the technical parts of the disease. And then the caregiver who was on talked about her experience with her sister and what her sister went through, and sort of provided that human aspect and explaining PH. And towards the end of that 30 minutes, it went great, and they brought up a lot of good points. Towards the end of that 30 minutes, someone called in right before the end of the show and said, basically what's on your screen right now. My chest is pounding because what you said has opened up a floodgate. I've had problems for years where I couldn't walk a block without taking a breath. And they kept saying it was asthma, but the medication for asthma didn't do anything for those symptoms. So Dr. Matai said, it sounds like you're experiencing symptoms of PH, and it might be worth it for you to go and talk to your doctor about getting testing to see, if indeed if you have PH. And the caller seemed very, very grateful. I also want to point out, I'm not sure if this has gone around the Facebook group very much today, but there was a Dr. Donahue syndicated column that appeared in a newspaper in St. Louis, but it's a nationally syndicated column. A very similar story. Dr. Donahue talked about pulmonary hypertension, I think in May, so a few months ago, and today the article said it was by a patient who wrote in and said, thanks for talking about pulmonary hypertension. You know, I've been wondering what these symptoms were. I went to my doctor and I asked for the tests that I needed, and I found out I do have PH, and now I've been started on treatment. So getting the word out about pulmonary hypertension, the resources available to patients, sort of empowering them to ask their doctors for, you know, the tests that they need. I mean, this last story that I told you, there's a person who was started on treatment probably because she learned about pulmonary hypertension in this newspaper article. So, you know, it can save lives, it can prolong lives. It's a great idea to raise awareness for pulmonary hypertension. So here I want to talk a little bit about why working with the media to raise awareness far and wide in your communities and around the United States is a great opportunity for Generation Hope to do something that, you know, in many ways this group was founded on and by young people who wanted to channel their optimism and idealism to make a difference. And I really can't think of a better way to do that. A very efficient way to do that is to work with the media, work with newspapers, work with newscasters to get that story out to people, you know, outside of maybe your immediate family and your friends, and really raise awareness far and wide in your community. And I want to point out sort of the picture that is on the bottom right of your screen. Erin Lacey was someone who she attended a media webinar that I gave earlier in the year. I think it was maybe April. And right afterwards, she decided she wanted to help her friend, the mother of Molly Dunn. Molly is a PH patient. Molly's mother and Erin's friend decided to host a fundraiser for Molly and to raise awareness for pulmonary hypertension. And so Erin had some success, so she got a story in the Delaware Online newspaper. There's a communitypub.com that serves several neighborhoods in her area. And she wrote to me and she said, we're trying to get the story in bigger newspapers. But the thing I want to highlight is she said, I recently wore my I Believe in Molly t-shirt, and someone stopped her and asked if it was Molly Dunn. You know, she's so thrilled. You know, because she was raising awareness, there are people out there who paid attention. They want to hear these stories, and each story is compelling in its own way. And there are people out there who will really connect to these stories and really understand PH in a much better way because you're sharing your personal stories. So I think for Generation Hope to spread their optimism, spread idealism, it's just a great way. Working with the media is a great way to do exactly that. So we talked a little bit about why it's good to raise awareness. I just want to give you some idea of the kinds of coverage that other Generation Hope members have gotten in their area. So I have an example of a newspaper story. It's the Bangor Daily News. Renee talked to a reporter about her autoimmune deficiency disorder and pulmonary hypertension, and it's very rare for someone to have both of those things. So she, I think, was very successful in getting, I think, 2 or 3 stories in her local newspaper. So Colleen Brunetti at the top of the screen, she appeared with a PHA board member on another public broadcasting network telecast, and they both talked about their connection with PH, and that was very well received, and both, I think Steve and Colleen were really excited about how well that interview went on the radio. And then Lauren Johnson, she holds a special event every year, and I think the first year she tried to get a newspaper coverage, and she did. And the second year she decided she wanted to reach out to news cameras, news stations, and this is sort of a screenshot of her on News Channel 9 in Oklahoma City talking about her special event. And I just would say one of the things I think each of these people would say afterwards is just look everywhere for an opportunity, whether that's local or regional news publications or radio broadcasts. But also look for publications that maybe just cover pulmonary or cardiovascular disease issues. You might want to look around in your doctor's offices because sometimes there are smaller journals, maybe not maybe regional journals that are interested in patient stories. So jot down that information, or if you can, maybe even steal the publication. Talk, of course, probably with the front desk person before you do that. But get that information. Just sort of keep your eye out for all kinds of different opportunities. So here's my hopefully inspirational photo to get you to think about how you can get started in taking those next steps. The thing on your screen is a picture of a media guide, but first I want to talk about press kits that we have at PHA, which it's just a great resource. PH is a pretty technical disease, so it's one of those things where maybe some people feel very comfortable talking about the disease. Maybe you've had it for a little while for whatever reason, but maybe you're not as comfortable talking about the technical part of the disease. You just really want to focus on telling your story, and that is fine, and that is why the press kits are a great resource for you. Within the press kits is just a ton of information about pulmonary hypertension, what it is, what kind of treatments are available, who it affects, and it also has information about resources from PHA. So if you don't feel comfortable about talking about pulmonary hypertension, you can give the reporter one of these press kits, and it will have most of that information. Will sort of take the pressure off you if you're feeling like you don't want to say the wrong thing or give the wrong information. If you feel comfortable talking about pulmonary hypertension, that's great. And the press kit, I think, would still be a great leave behind for a reporter in case, in your discussion he asks you questions, but maybe he or she thinks of a different question that they wish they had asked. They can refer to the press kit and find the answers to any questions that maybe they just didn't get to. The second thing I want to talk about on this slide is creating a media list. It's basically, it maybe seems more complicated than it really is. It's as simple as just figuring out who on your local paper or news station is most likely to run your story. And it's easy to sort of figure out what kinds of reporters you would want to talk to, because most publications, if you look online, they break down each section and sort of list who is in charge of writing those kinds of stories. So they'll have like a business section, they'll have community reporters, maybe scene reporters, sports reporters, letter to the editor section. So for instance, if you're interested in talking about a special event, you would want to contact that probably the scene reporters or community, maybe check with a community reporter and see if they're interested in running your story. I also here would like to point out, if you have a favorite reporter, maybe you want to, when you're emailing them, and we'll talk about preparing your pitch in just a second, but when you're emailing them, you might want to reference a previous story that really stuck out in your mind, and then just maybe ask and say why it's important for them now to cover your story. And then with Awareness Month coming up, one other way to sort of prepare a pitch, and when you're thinking about contacting reporters that you want to reach out to, piggybacking is a good way to sort of tie your story with maybe a larger event. So PH Awareness Month is coming up in November. So if you want to raise awareness for PH, maybe you want to talk about all the different things that the PH community is doing during Awareness Month, and then also highlight your story, your history, and your journey. And then I tell people about this, and they never really think that it's something they should do, except every once in a while people will do it, and it's great results. You should think about asking any sort of family and friend, anyone you can think of, if they know any reporters anywhere in your local community. And I think you would be surprised if you sort of just ask around. somebody always knows somebody, and I'm willing to bet that if you ask nicely, they would be willing to sort of help you fast track a story to getting published. So the media guide, as you'll see, is on your screen. It's basically this webinar, but in written form. So it has a lot of the great, the same tips, etc. But maybe you're on this webinar, maybe you prefer to read things instead of listening, or maybe you prefer both. You can email me after this webinar to ask for the media guide, and when I get this webinar edited and put up on the screen, you can sit at home and flip through the media guide while you're listening to this webinar. Whatever works for you, whatever kind of a learner you are, the information on how to reach out to the media is contained in a multitude of places. And then finally, so preparing your pitch. It's a good thing to think about probably while you're creating your press list, thinking about your pitch and who you want to contact at your local media outlets. Like I said before, if you want to just sort of talk about your own story, maybe you want to talk to a community reporter and sort of pitch your story, your experience, your day-to-day experience. Maybe at that point you want to point out, like, if you have a pump, this is what it's like to have a pump every day. This is what I go through. I'm in classes, and for me to manage pH and then go to class and then do the other things in life, that would be a good opportunity and a good pitch to prepare for like a community or a lifestyle section reporter. And I mentioned earlier, maybe you want to promote like a special event. Again, maybe talking to the community calendar, the person in charge of that. And highlighting story points about maybe if it's in honor of a person, or you want to highlight a few people that are going to be going to this event. Just sort of thinking about that pitch and sort of the angle and the best way to sort of present your story so that your likelihood of getting it printed and published increases. And I just would, I've offered before and I'll say it again, I'll offer forever. If you have any questions about preparing a pitch or creating a media list, or you want to order the press kit or media guide, my information will be available at the end of the webinar. So just shoot me a line or give me a call, and I am more than happy to talk those things over with you. So just a couple more next steps, and then I promise I will stop talking. The media guide that I referenced on the previous slide has press release, a press release template. It sort of depends. I mean, if you're doing a special event, a press release is probably still a good idea. But if you want to sort of just talk about your story, prepare that pitch, you might not even need to prepare something as formal as a press release. If you get the email address or a phone number for a reporter, you might want to go ahead and just shoot them an email or give them a call just to sort of explain your story. Public service announcements are still pretty popular, and we have resources available for that. We have pre-recorded PSA for the radio. We have text for that PSA in case you talk to your local radio station and they would rather read the announcement aloud. We basically have all of the information you need. Just talk with your local radio station to find out what requirements they have for a public service announcement, and we have them here, so I can definitely share that information with you. And then sometimes maybe writing an op-ed or a letter to the editor is a good way to share your story. So look at that section of the paper. And again, if you have any, you want me to maybe run by your letter to the editor to me before you send it in, that's something that I would be more than happy to work with you on. And I think the quote at the bottom of the screen is a good one. Earlier in the webinar I talked about, one of the things people maybe shy away from working with the media because it seems like it might be a lot of work. You can do any or all of these things. If you prefer to just do a public service announcement, that's great. If you want to do a public service announcement and do a press release and do a letter to the editor, it really is sort of just up to you. But just keep in mind, Loretta McNary, the host of a local show in Memphis, she says, if you want to, you need to, following up is a good thing to do. You have to be persistent because, one email to a reporter is not, as she says, it's just not going to cut it. So just if you decide you really just want to work with this one community reporter, keep, working that relationship and keep trying to build that relationship and reaching out to them. And then I think this advice that I'm about to share is something that will work well with a Generation Hope group. So just sort of think outside the box. The local media scene is changing a little bit, and this sort of established newspaper, news station, radio station, it's sort of a formal way of sharing news, but I think everyone can probably agree that social media plays a big impact, or can make a big impact in raising awareness. So maybe you want to look around on Facebook and post your events on various Facebook pages. And I know Kim might talk about that a little later. I also would encourage you to, if you are on Twitter, you might want to look and see if the reporter you're interested in writing a story about you could post something, or you could follow them on Twitter and sort of get to know them that way, and sort of get some more insights. What kinds of things are they posting on their Twitter account? Maybe you can get an idea of what kinds of stories they're interested in posting, or maybe even just like altering your pitch a little bit to increase the chances of getting your story published. And then so locally I follow, I guess I'm doing this out of order, but local blogs are, I think, an important part and an important resource for you to reach out to. In the DC area, we have local DC focused blogs that actually have a good amount of readers. And then we also, I know in DC there's local community neighborhood blogs that you might, I've seen a lot of events posted in there, and it might be something just to explore it within Google Reader, sort of doing a search for patient blogs, or just a local blog that might have that might post information about like a special event, for example. Again, it just sort of always goes back to just looking for opportunities wherever they may be. So finally, and then I know I already promised, but I promise that I'm almost done. So here you are, you've submitted your press release, or you've pitched your story, and you've heard from a reporter who they're interested in interviewing you, so it's great, congratulations, but maybe you're not sure what to do next. So first of all, again, I'm here to help, so if you need help maybe talking over talking points, give me a call. If you want to practice your answers, just give me a call, shoot me an email. One of the things that I will sort of focus on again is, we talked a little bit earlier about preparing your pitch, and now you sort of want to talk about preparing and crafting the message that you want to share. So think about what you want your dream headline to be, and then sort of just craft your message around that. Try and anticipate the questions and think of answers that will get you that dream headline. It says, here you might want to look at some talking points. If you don't feel comfortable, again, talking about pulmonary hypertension, that is perfectly fine. That's, again, what the press kits are for. But basically just sort of sit there, take a deep breath, relax, and have fun. And as you'll see, Melanie Kozak, she's on this call actually, but she was very excited to just share her story with a reporter. And just keep in mind, the technical information about pulmonary hypertension is out there. The PHA, if you want to refer them to the PHA website or to me to answer a technical question about PH, that is perfectly fine. Focus on what you're the expert in, which is your personal story, your journey. That is sort of the very compelling part of working with reporters and sharing your story. So finally, just a quick piece of advice before you get to listen to Kimberlee's amazing bits of advice. Basically, one thing that I have heard over and over and over from people who have reached out to the media is that they weren't afraid to ask anyone and everyone. So so I hear them say, I looked for every opportunity and I wasn't afraid to ask at any point if a reporter would be willing to work with me so that I could share my story and raise awareness. So just sort of keep that in mind. And I think at this point I will introduce Kimberlee and let her talk about her experience. Kimberlee is a Generation Hope member. She's also a PH Aware campaign member and has been very active in reaching out to her members of Congress. This photo that's on the slide is her at last year's congressional luncheon. She spoke to congressional members, staff members, and other PH community members who were there on Capitol Hill to talk to their members of Congress. She's a support group leader for 2 support groups and also is an administrator for PH Families Facebook group. She does 1,000 things and still was willing to share, willing to do everything she can to talk and help the community, the PH community. So let me see if I can unmute her. Kim, is that you?
Hello.
Hello. Perfect. I will turn it over to you and stop talking because I know that you have so many more tips and amazing advice for everyone out there.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary hypertension summer of 2009. The diagnosis happened after several months of being misdiagnosed several times. So after waking up from a coma state and being told I'm quote-unquote lucky to be alive and that I had severe pulmonary hypertension, I was completely clueless on what the meaning of pulmonary hypertension was. So basically, being the outgoing person that I am, I became involved with the Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Campaign with PHA. And so eventually this led to me speaking about PH within months of me being diagnosed to, say, family, friends, and soon to a lot of other people in the community. So I've done a few community newsletters and an assignment with the National Organization for Rare Diseases and also the National Institute of Health. And like Elisabeth said, I was the patient speaker at the 2010 Congressional Luncheon on Capitol Hill. And as far as that, I've done many awareness events, fundraisers, and some community health fairs also as the patient speaker for different groups. So when I was approached by PHA staff about a possible article, I basically jumped to it. So even though I was a bit scared and nervous, though, a few months later, a reporter from the Washington Post did contact me. Well, actually, she emailed me and explained to me about her monthly mystery diagnosis column. So I believe I asked her question after question and even more questions because I had never done a formal interview, and especially not about my medical history ever before. So I learned from talking with her that I could basically give as little or as much information that I wanted, but to make sure I was giving accurate information, I did go ahead and provide some of my medical records, but I only provided what I wanted to her. So during the interview, I made sure that I was in a quiet place while I gave the phone interview, and the interview took some hours, but it was divided up into a few days, and it was very emotional, I would say, when I did do the phone interview for the Washington Post. But I basically, I basically started from the time I could remember having symptoms before I knew I had PH to when I was actually diagnosed and what happened after being diagnosed. So during the phone interview, I did cry because, like I said before, it was very emotional. But I had only had PH since 2009, well, formally diagnosed in 2009. So the interviewer became emotional also, so I knew that she somewhat understood what the daily life of a PHer was, and even though she didn't have pulmonary hypertension herself, so I was grateful for that. But I was extremely happy, though, once the story was available this past spring in the Washington Post print edition and on their website. And I thought it was neat that I Googled my name with Washington Post, and the article just shows up anytime I want to read it. But in the print edition, they had a photo. The Washington Post photographer came out and took a photo of myself with the Remodulin Cat Legacy pump with me at home. And they did give me access to those photos also. So many people read my story and were touched by what I'm going through and how PH changed my life. So I still to this day get people telling me that they read my story, which makes me very happy that they took the time to read it. A few weeks ago, I went to my dentist to schedule an appointment. I just walked in, and there's my Washington Post article in a frame on his wall, and that really touched me when I saw that. So the reason I decided to share my pulmonary hypertension story is so that others will know about PH and basically be able to put a face to pulmonary hypertension. People often look at me and think I'm not sick, but if they read the article, then they know that PH is a very, very serious illness, as we all know. So when we talk to the media about pulmonary hypertension, we're doing so to basically educate others about this rare disease. So to me, the more we educate others and share our story, then people might be more willing to donate for research. So people want to put a face to an organization they are donating to. So now, why not yours or my face? So sharing your story can be scary, like it was for me, but just think, if every patient shares some details about how pulmonary hypertension is affecting their lives, then more people will know about PH, just like they do with other life-threatening diseases. So if you do decide to share your story with the media, whether in person or in print, e-newsletters, community newsletters, school papers, or magazines, I would recommend first thinking about what you want to share and how PH changed your life. So let's see. Always remember that you can share as little or as much information as you want to. You're in control. And if your story will be shared in print, you may want to ask to read it before it is printed. You can read it as many times as you want, but just make sure you approve it before you give them authorization to print your story, because it's all about you. And if you're sharing your story in person, you might want to ask the interviewer for a list of questions that they will ask in advance, so you'll be prepared. Or better yet, you can just ask, give them specific questions to ask you. And also, you may want to know the basics of what pulmonary hypertension is and the medications you are using. It is a good idea to give a general idea of what PH means to you. And of course, be calm and try to sit while you're telling your story to conserve your energy. That is something that I learned throughout doing different sessions with the community. Always try to sit. And at the end of the interview, give the pulmonary hypertension website or the PHA patient support line in case people want to know more about PH or have questions. this is something that I often forget to do at the end of the interview, and I always have the interviewer calling or emailing me or forwarding me another person's email because they want to get in contact with me. And that's when I'll go ahead and give them the PHA website or contact person at PHA. So if you do that beforehand, you will already have that cleared and out the way. So you don't have to deal with a lot of follow-up calls and emails. And some of our stories might be similar, but they are not the exact same. There is something unique about every PH story, and that is what you want to emphasize when telling your story. And like Elisabeth said, PHA have general letters for those who want to contact the media by sending an email. So the key is to always make sure you personalize it with writing something that is unique about you and how you're dealing with, coping with pulmonary hypertension on a daily basis. And also follow up with a call or email. Let the person know that you appreciate them taking the time to read and listen to your pulmonary hypertension story. So basically, the more we educate others about pulmonary hypertension, the more people will know about PH and will be more willing to donate for research to help find a cure. And as far as Facebook and Twitter, I do have a Facebook and Twitter account, and I do use them to the fullest. Anybody that follow me on Twitter or as my Facebook friend, you will know that I post, and even on the PH family group, I will always continue to post about different pulmonary hypertension awareness events or just different resources from the PHA website so people will know about it. Take advantage of Facebook and Twitter. When I did the July 8th Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Day, I took advantage to the utmost. And I believe that's why the July 8th event, PH Awareness Day, was so successful worldwide. We had people all over the world that participated in this event. So definitely use Facebook and Twitter, like Elisabeth said. So thank you, Elisabeth, for giving me this opportunity to share. I'm sure I'll be doing more media-related interviews in the future about pulmonary hypertension. Thank you.
Good. So many good points you brought up, and it actually is slightly embarrassing that I didn't think to include them in this webinar. Asking for the questions beforehand, that's a great tip to sort of help you prepare and think about what you want and come up with those quick answers to questions that maybe, without prior without looking at the questions beforehand, you maybe would be a little flustered. So that is 1,000 other good points. So thank you for sharing your experience and sharing your tips. I'm going to go over a couple of resource slides. I keep harping on these resources that we have here. I just want to make sure that you know that they are available. So all of these things are available at www.phassociation.org/awareness/phaware, So, there's interview tips on there. A lot of the information that was on this webinar will be there. You can also sign up for media action alerts. Those are emails that we send out to people. So around Awareness Month, you don't have to remember to reach out to the media. You get an email alert that sort of alerts you to the idea that you could potentially raise media awareness during Awareness Month. Usually we send those out a few months in advance. You could also look at some of the media success stories that are there on the website. And then join the PH Aware campaign email group, which is something that people sign up for. And if you have any questions, you're able to sort of post that to the rest of the group. It's full of other people who are out there trying to raise awareness. So you can ask questions about maybe the best way to share your pitch or create your pitch, or you can talk about media successes that you've experienced. It's really meant for just sort of a conversation with other people like you who are trying to raise awareness. So here is my coveted contact information I've mentioned a few times in this call. So Elisabeth at phsssociation.org, and that's Elisabeth with an S, Elisabeth. And then my phone number is 301-565-3004 extension 753, and I am available to talk over anything you would like to talk about as far as reaching out to the media. There's one other thing I just want to make sure that while I have fellow Generation Hopers on the call, there's another opportunity available to participate in a very, very, very new, as in last week was the first meeting of this Generation Hope Advocacy subgroup committee, which is focused on creating fun advocacy opportunities for Generation Hope to get involved in to sort of increase their impact in Congress and on Capitol Hill. Some of the ideas are, creating a Generation Hope specific letter campaign that specifically mentions what it's like to be a young person with pulmonary hypertension and the things that you go through, and these letters would be sent to members of Congress. And then even something that no other PHA legislative advocates have really done on a wide scale, which would be creating a video. Instead of sending a letter, creating a quick 1 or 2 minute video to send to your member of Congress. Now those are just a couple of the two ideas that we've sort of thrown out, and the group is excited about getting going with. But we would love to have anyone else on this call take part in this committee. We need your help, your ideas. So if you're interested in joining, or at least if you just want to keep abreast of what is the news that this group sort of creates and ideas available, go ahead and either email Melanie at Melanie J, MELANIEJAE at AOL.com, or you can email me at Elisabeth, again, ELISABETH at phassociation.org, and either share your ideas, offer your help, or just keep up to date on what this exciting new group is doing and coming up with. So without further ado, I will open the call for questions, or maybe you want to just share your stories, or maybe you have a tip or something that wasn't shared with the group. I'm going to unmute all of the phones. If you would like to share any tips, you're welcome to do so. So let me just do that right now.
The conference has been unmuted.
So I'll open the floor to anyone and everyone who has comments, questions, stories, etc.
Hi, it's Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
Long time no speak to you, Elisabeth. Hi, Kim.
Hello.
Hello to everyone. I just wanted to share my media experience. If you don't know by now, I am putting together a gala called the Vision of Hope Gala for November, and I had Melanie. I think Melanie is on the call. I had Melanie from the. Hi, Mel.
Hi.
I had Melanie and I had Alex is the media team, and they were sending out emails, letters, calling, and Channel 13, because in Baltimore we have Channel 13, Channel 245, and Channel 11. And so we have reached out to Melanie, I believe, sent letters wide spectrum to the newsroom, and then Alex was following up with emails to the individual reporters and anchors, and it was just a lot of footwork, but we started getting feedback. So Channel 13, also the news, they have events calendar, local events calendar for your area. So, and it's absolutely free to, like, if you are doing an event, to put the event on the news calendar. But if it's on the news calendar, then that means it must be something. Even if it's PHA Awareness Day, it doesn't have to be necessarily a fundraiser, but just the day. If you like when Kimberlee did the Awareness Day, if you put like your activities, you have to actually submit it. They have to read it and decide whether or not that's something they're going to put on their event calendar. And Channel 13 so far has put it on their event calendar, but then I got an email from Fox 45 that they want to do a press release on the gala and about PH. And this is actually going to be on a segment on air. So I have to find out how long the segment is, because I can talk all day about PH. So I have to find out exactly how long the segment is. But just being persistent and just consistently just putting it out there, and then they're getting like all of these emails, and they're getting it from both sides of the spectrum, because like I said, Alex and Melanie have been doing a wonderful job because they are starting to respond. And then I even Patrice Harris, which is our anchor woman, she sent me an email saying, oh yeah, she wants to come to the gala, and she wants to have coverage at the gala, like a news coverage at the gala as well. So it just, they're doing a wonderful job, and they are responding.
That's so great. Melanie, do you want to talk a little bit about that or anything else?
Oh, absolutely. I would like to say that I literally keep a list of who I email, and when I don't get a response back, I give them the first email. I give about a week. I don't get a response back, I email you again. In my email, I tell you that this is my second email. Please consider it. And I have my whole entire email again. And a lot of these people that Nicole is talking about, I think I've emailed between 5 and 10 times, just trying to remind them that we're not going away, that they can't ignore us, that you can pretend to ignore me, but you're going to get an email once after the week mark. It starts every 3 days, every 2 days, every day, And then eventually I actually got an email from somebody saying they were interested, but that we had to email him back in October because it was too far away for them to schedule. But I literally have been hounding people.
I mean, it seems like whatever it is that you and Alex are doing, it seems to be working. So that's wonderful. Are there any other questions out in the group, or anyone else want to share anything?
Well, if I could share something, if no one's saying anything right now.
Yes.
I think I talked to you about this, Elisabeth, that I talked to my hairdresser, and I told her about my disease. And I said, I know like you're just a small local shop, there's 4 beauticians, but I said, can we do something in November for pulmonary hypertension awareness, that you can, donate a portion of the funds, that I can give out literature, that I can be at the salon all day and talk to people. And, I said, I'm still going to come here if you say no. I understand you're a small salon. They actually loved the idea. They told me I could make up the prices, that they would donate 100% of the proceeds. So every haircut, let's say, is $40. $40 check would be written to PHA, and that I'd be more than welcome to sit there all day and talk to people about PH.
And I think that's just another example, a great example of just looking for any opportunity. I mean, whether it's raising media awareness or not, I mean, just raising PH awareness, looking for every opportunity and not being afraid to ask. And
even even if you're afraid, starting small scale is great.
Right.
Because that's like getting your feet wet. Like I'm at the hospital now with my uncle, and I've talked to all the nurses on the floor about PH. And I've showed my pump. And I've,
Right. It's one of those things where, and I think because you're, doing these things and looking for, whether it's big or small ways to raise awareness, you're building relationships with people in your community throughout the process, and that really, it builds in a great way.
Right.
I just wanted to piggyback on something that Melanie just said about the hairdresser. Like, my hairdresser is really involved in my pH. So, like, when we had the Blue Whips campaign, we set up a table. She set up a table at the front door of her salon, balloons so that it could draw people's attention. We had the trifold board with, like, what pH was, and we had people coming over and, like, doing the Blue Whips. And actually, I was talking to them about the pH and Blue Whips and the side effects and, like, the different things and the symptoms, and it was just amazing. Out of 175 people didn't even know what pH was. So just talking about it and getting your story out there is definitely important, because you are bringing awareness. But you would be surprised. I don't know if anybody's really well, down here in Baltimore, you know, like, I know some people get local news, and I think it's like national news, so I watch both of the channels. And you'd be surprised how many celebrities are getting pH, because there was like a country singer, like her mom or something just got pH, and she was like, she don't know anything about it. What is it? However, I could not get her name, so I don't know exactly who it is, and I've been Googling trying to find out. But also, the Baltimore Blast last year did a charity game and donated part of their proceeds, like 50% of their proceeds, to PHA last year. Well, I know that the sponsorship director, his wife's grandfather has PH, and they want to be involved in the gala. I got an email from her yesterday that her grandfather passed away, but she still wants to come to the gala, and she wants to bring 20 people, and they are considering, like, having the players. And the Baltimore Blast is our soccer team, if no one knows, but that's the Baltimore soccer team. And they're going to donate memorabilia to the gala, and so it definitely is, you know, it's just talking about it, and you'll be surprised, actually, who has pH, who you know, who have these symptoms and don't know that they have pH. But it really is, to me, it seemed like a wide spread of people, because I went to my pulmonologist's office, and he told me that every 2 weeks, at least one person is being diagnosed with pH.
You know, listening, going back to, I guess, all this talk about hairdressers has gotten me thinking. Melanie, are you, I mean, in addition to the fact that I sort of want to get my hair done sooner rather than later, is the events that, Melanie, that you talked about with your hairdresser, you have actually told me this story. I think this is the third time I've heard it, and I'm just now wondering, if it's one day, have you thought about reaching out with the hairdresser, that salon, to the media about the fact that they're donating for either that day or that week? Okay, good. Okay.
We've talked about the local paper and then the county paper, you know, the bigger paper, doing it on both levels. And I would even call the media, like the local news channel, to see if they would come out for that, just to do like a 5-minute thing of, you know, local salon donates 100% of profits, you know, proceeds to charity.
Yeah, because that, I mean, that's a great headline for them too. So
yeah. Well, that's what I try to use when I try to get people to allow me to do fundraisers. I try to let them know that I will get media, so it will help you as well as helping us.
Yeah, and that's my angle. That is a great pitch. Yeah, that's a great pitch to get people to help you out in raising pH awareness. So that's wonderful. Well, we have a couple of minutes, literally 2 minutes. So if there are no other comments or questions, and are there? Because if there are none, then I will just go ahead and thank everyone for attending, and special thanks to Kim, who, you know, provided so many good tips for everyone and shared her, I mean, amazing story. So thank you so much for doing that, Kim. I know you have a lot going on. and I'm sure everyone on the call appreciates it as well.
Thank you for having me. An awesome job, Nicole and Melanie. That is awesome.
Okay, so with that, I will, stop the recording. So thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, Elisabeth and Kim.